Welcome to a very special edition, Wastebusters, of the Waste Not What Not podcast. It comes at a time just in the midst of a full moon, which is really all about letting go and creating space for the new, for the unknown. It's also rather poignant that in the last week we have lost 4 people, pioneers in their own right. The first was Nigel Latta, who made such a difference so far as parenting is concerned, using his background in psychology and great humour. The other was Jane Goodall, who is an absolute legend herself in conservation work and connecting us to ourselves, to the animal world and to Earth. Next was Patricia Routledge, who made herself famous for the role of Mrs. Bouquet. Very funny in my family because my mum married a man called Mr. Bucket. And I've just heard that the author, Jilly Cooper, has also died. Now, I can remember reading one of her books called Rider 40 odd years ago. Although they're celebrities, each one of them have made their mark in the world and created a legacy for themselves by doing things differently, connecting to what was important to them, and their lives unfolded in such a way that they were able to put their energy into that and made a difference, not only to themselves, but to other people as well. Now, you may or may not know that the heart of my own work is mentoring, and I have combined my background in psychology, and I now bridge spirituality and quantum physics together on a foundation of the Tao Te Ching, and I call it Pip's Poo, which is really all about returning to our natural state. So if you're intrigued and you would like to find out some more, go to my website, philippaross.com, and book yourself a call under schedule, and we can see if we can play together and I can help you. Moving on to today's guest, before you press the play button, there is some very real and raw conversations going on. So if you've got some little people around you and you may not want them to hear these things, put your earplugs in or save it to listen to later on. Enjoy. I have the most amazing guest with me today. Her name is Betty Guadagno. Have I pronounced it right?
You've said it pretty good, yes.
Who is it actually?
Betty Guadagno.
Is it Italian?
It is Italian, yes.
Well, I was doing some research on it, how to pronounce it, and I found out that it's given to a much wanted child, a long-awaited child, and known for good dealing. So I thought that was really scrumptious.
It means to earn, which is funny because I grew up really poor, but now I'm not. So I think my surname has finally taken shape in my life.
Exactly. So welcome to the future. And I really wanted to start off how I normally finish, which is with the words, open your mind to a world of possibilities, because your story is, you would never have imagined your story up to the age of 35, 6 years ago, that so many possibilities would have opened up to you. And I love the fact that you're so juicy, raw and real, because there's so much out there that has this pretense of, life is wonderful, and portraying this picture without showing the shit show that went on beforehand and how you're actually dealing with it and evolving. So how is life for you now?
Life for me now is tits. I love life now.
Awesome.
It wasn't always like that, but life today is full of connection and community and spirit and teachers and mentors, and it's full of purpose and passion and service. And all of those things feel like heaven. And so every day of my life now feels like heaven. And I'm not saying that every second of every day is awesome. Like, it's not. Like, life is still life. But it's so much better than it was. It's so, so much better.
Absolutely, because you came from a place of hell, and it's really from actually harming to actually helping. It's a real 180-degree turn on life. I know that your parents committed joint suicide together, so that was majorly traumatic for you. What age was that?
23 when that happened.
Oh,
and
wow.
My sister was 18 and we found them. Yeah. And it was really traumatizing. It was the most traumatizing thing that's ever happened to me. And I'm sure will ever happen to me. And it shaped me into a traumatized person who was maliciously, intentionally traumatizing other people. It felt like it became my job to make other people just hurt as deeply as I was hurting.
Wow. Wow. That's really raw and real. So was it at that point that you were onto the drugs and prostituting and being homeless? Or did it happen prior?
I was already on drugs. I started using drugs when I was real young, and I was a full-blown drug addict by the time that I was 15. I had like a nice, healthy methamphetamine addiction. So not like your regular, like, oh, I smoke weed, I drink once in a while, teenage shit. Like I found drugs and I was like, this is the only thing that will ever make me happy.
Wow.
And, my parents were both drug addicts too. So it just seemed like that was a very regular thing to do.
Mhm.
And the prostitution and the homelessness didn't come until much later. And that's the progression of the dis-ease of addiction. It's like first it starts off as fun. I mean, it was fun to use drugs up until a certain point, and then all of a sudden it became fun with problems, and then it just became problems. And it was just problems for a very, very long time. I was an active addiction for 20 years.
Wow.
And I would say maybe the first 3 years was fun, but then after that, it became like a job, and that job had no benefits. It was really hard. There was terrible pay, and yeah, it was not a good time. But it was just my routine. It was my ritual. It was my regular. So that's what I just kept doing.
And it's relentless, just surviving each day, I guess.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a full-time job and it is painful. I mean, in hindsight, I can see that it was painful. When I was going through it, it just seemed regular. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that my life was even abnormal. In fact, I thought that people who didn't use drugs were real squares. They were so lame. Like
Mm,
they don't know anything about having fun in life, even though
yeah.
my life was not fun. But my addiction had warped inside my mind so deeply, and it had taken such intense roots inside of my psyche that I had convinced myself that my life that was full of chaos and poverty and dysfunction was quote unquote fun.
Wow. So you can't know what you don't know, as you said. So was there any stage, can you remember, where you thought this is just too fucking hard?
Oh my gosh, so many times I thought that it was too hard, but I didn't know any other way to live because I had never seen anybody else live other ways. I
Mm,
mean, nobody in my direct universe. So, like, my
yeah.
parents died from their addiction, everybody in my family uses drugs. And so I had just never seen anybody recover. And so it just seemed like a fairy tale to me. But my thing that I would do is like I would get all my partners strung out on drugs. So like every friend that I met or every romantic partner that I met, if they weren't already on drugs, I would introduce them to drugs. And I've been married a couple of times. I'm quite a catch. They just throw me back and forth. But my second husband, he was like the love of my life. Like I didn't think that I would ever find anybody like this man. And I had gotten him strung out on opiates. And after about 4 years, he turned to me and he said, I can't do this anymore. I really want to stop using. And I said, well, I've only known you for 4 years and I've known drugs for 20. So I choose drugs. And like I said, this guy was like the love of my life. And I think then I realized that I was in very deep into what my life was because I just literally let this man go out of my life. And then a couple years after that, I was dating a guy and he didn't even like using drugs, but he really liked me and I liked using drugs. And he ended up dying of a cocaine overdose. His heart exploded. And I felt so much guilt and shame from his death because he wouldn't have been using drugs if he wasn't with me. And that totally spiraled me into a place where I thought, I have to change. I have to do something to change. And I tried. I went to detox, I went to rehab, I went into the rooms of 12-step fellowship, and I just did not feel worthy of living another kind of life. And I didn't even know what living another kind of life could look like.
Wow. So did you work your way through that one? Have you tried rehab a number of times then?
Yes, I've been in over a dozen detoxes and
Wow.
rehabs. And I never went into treatment to like actually be in recovery. I would just go to treatment because I needed a nap. Like I needed to rest and recalibrate so that the drugs would work again because the drugs always stopped working. Or if I had lost my apartment, I would go into detox and rehab until I could figure out whose couch I could sleep on so that I had a place to stay. And it just seemed like a
Mhm.
good place to take a rest, really. And so I abused the system. I abused the medical system to really continue to enable my disease. Because, like I said, I was just resting and recalibrating so that it would work again. But that time after my boyfriend died, I did really try to give it a go. But, I was like still selling drugs and I was still prostituting myself. And so I was still in this lifestyle of a drug addict. And it's real hard to be not on drugs when you're living that life. And so I ended up relapsing. And that's really when my life took the darkest turn that it ever had in my life.
In what way?
My disease, my addiction just completely annihilated me. It was already not really fun, but it was at least something that I was doing. But then after I had tried this time to get clean and it didn't stick, every time I used drugs, I thought that bugs were crawling around inside of me. And so I would like rip my skin open, I would pick at myself, I would cut myself open, and that would happen every single time that I used. And I
Wow.
still couldn't help myself. I still kept using. And that's how I know that addiction is a disease. It's not like a moral deficiency. It's not because I'm some kind of bad person who can't make good decisions. Like I actually have a disease. Like I have a disease inside my brain that tells me just to keep using, even if I'm tearing and ripping my skin open and bleeding everywhere. I have to keep using. And I began prostituting myself in this totally disgusting, depraved way, like worse than I ever had in my whole life, like in the 10 years that I had been doing that off and on. Like it became all day, every day. Like I was like a $20 hooker, like just whatever I could get just to keep getting drugs because my brain was now so warped into the idea. I mean, it had always been that way, but the last 2 years was like next level, so bad.
Wow. So, as you say, it's really hard to get out of it because you're numbed deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's like being right down the bottom of a hole. And like you say, I picked up on what you're saying. It's not a moral thing, it is a disease. And so the outside world makes lots of judgments on people and why they do things. And I think that is one of the key things that, from your own experiences, that you have empathy for these people on the extreme levels of it. And I guess from doing the 12-step program so many times, is there anything in there that really helped you apart from the community and biding your time and recalibrating?
Yeah, well, inside of institutions, I think that like when I was inside of medical facilities, the things that I learned was the science behind it, right? Like I learned that my neural pathways are all crossed and my pain receptors are all messed up from taking heroin and doing opiates. And so the pain that I'm experiencing in withdrawal is an actual chemical reaction because
Yeah.
all the wires in my brain are twisted up. So that was really helpful for me to like kind of learn the psychoeducation around
Mm.
addiction and what would happen if I continued in recovery, how my brain would reset itself. But inside of 12 step, I understood that there was people in the world who were recovering. That was the biggest takeaway, even though it didn't latch on for me right away. And now I'm a member of 12 step fellowship and I have been for nearly 6.5 years. I did see, oh, there's other people in the world who are recovering from addiction. There's people who have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years in recovery. So if they can do it, maybe I can do it too. And that really set a glimmer of hope inside of me that if they can, I probably can too.
That's right behind the purpose of my wanting to interview you, is that seeds of hope, is because it doesn't matter how far down something you are, there's always light at the end of the tunnel and there is a way out, and it's from an understanding of how things work. So what was the 2x4 that happened to you that actually brought you to your senses to a different level?
I died.
Oh,
I
okay.
died. And that is really what brought me to the other level. Yeah, I overdosed and I had a near death experience or a near death like experience in my overdose. I had a Kundalini awakening. I had this just huge life force energy activation. And inside of my experience, I saw that I had planned my life, that I actually chose to be an addict, that I picked my parents, that we picked poverty, we picked addiction, I picked prostitution, I picked dereliction, degradation. I had chosen all of these things in my life that I had felt victimized by. And this was my download. This was my greatest gift from this spiritual experience. But I didn't think that it was a real spiritual experience. I just thought that it was drug induced psychosis because
Yeah.
this wasn't part of my picture. It wasn't part of my life. And so after my experience, again, I was like, wow, I was so high. I thought I was talking to God. And I thought that God told me that I planned my life. That's so weird. That's just another Tuesday, like whatever. And I just wrote the whole thing off. But it became clear to me that the things that I had experienced, they were real, through hearing other people share about their experiences. I was like, oh my God, I think that's actually what happened to me. But it took me years to figure that out. And it took me months to integrate that experience and to believe that maybe it really was a true one. But yeah, dying is definitely the thing that kind of shook me awake and made me get onto a different path.
Yeah, because you just didn't know any different. And as you say, you were so used to hallucinating on many levels that it was just another experience for you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And my life had become so weird and everything was so dark and depraved. And having an experience, a light experience like the one that I had, like feeling like I was connected to the divine, like I was connected to God, to source. I felt so unworthy of anything like that. That's why I wrote it off as a hallucination because I thought God doesn't give a fuck about me. I'm just some junkie prostitute. Like God doesn't care about me.
Yeah.
If God cares about anybody, it's definitely not me.
So, how did you integrate it? I hear a lot of interviews about near death experiences, and a lot of people keep it under wraps because it's weird and they know a different life than you had known. So, it must have been freaking hard.
Yeah, it was not pretty. It's ugly, but it was worth it.
Yeah.
And, this is like for anybody who might be going through something and you think, well, I can't change. I've been this way for too long. I thought the same thing. I thought I can't change. My whole family's like this. Who am I? Who do I think I am
Yeah.
to let go of the legacy of my family? I have to be this way.
Mm-hmm.
So if you come from a family that's full of anger and you become an angry person and you think like, well, this is just my personality, this is
Yeah.
just who I am. No, this is inherited behaviors.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned about my own addiction is that that was an inherited behavior. It's not necessarily something that makes up my personality. It did make up my personality for a long time, but it doesn't have to define me
Yeah.
for the rest of my life. And so my integration took place inside of a long-term rehab because I had to learn how to be a human, just a regular human. Like I had to learn how to be a human who didn't use drugs to cope with their feelings. And I'm not talking about the feelings of depression and sadness. Like, yeah, those are feelings. I mean, I don't know how to deal with joy. I don't know how to deal with happiness because
Yeah.
I'm used to depression and failure. Like, that's my standard, that's my foundation. My whole life had been just one big failure, like one big event of disappointment over and over and over again. That I was really used to. But then I had this spiritual experience and I realized that it's a true one and that God had told me that I was worthy of all the love in the universe in my experience. And I didn't believe that, but I knew that I must have been worthy of something to have an experience like that or to have a second chance on life. Or, I mean, in reality, it was probably more like a fifth or a sixth or a seventh chance at life. So my integration took place by learning how to cope with my feelings, what to do with my feelings when they become so overwhelming that I want to turn to drugs or alcohol or sugar or porn or masturbating or codependency or limerence or work addiction or productivity addiction. I just want to numb myself. I want to numb all of my emotions. I don't want to feel my emotions. So a big part of integrating was just learning how to sit in the discomfort,
Yeah.
just sit still. It will pass. Like these emotions are like clouds in the sky. They will pass, I promise. But in the moment when you're in the eye of the storm, it doesn't feel like they'll ever pass. So that was a big part of integration, was cultivating patience, cultivating all the spiritual principles I wanted to embody in my life. So I let go of drugs and I let go of addiction. And that was my whole personality.
Yeah.
And so I had to design a new personality for myself, which at first was like a huge daunting task. Like, oh my God, I don't even know who I am. I'm a grown woman and I have no idea who I am. Like, how the fuck did this happen?
Yep.
But then I just changed the narrative and I was like, oh my God, I don't know anything about myself. That is so cool. That means I get to discover her, I get to design her. And so I started trying on all these spiritual principles the same way that you would try on clothes to come up with a new style for yourself. And so I really wanted to be an honest person. That's all that I really wanted out of the next part of my life because I spent my whole life lying to myself, lying to other people. So I started to practice, like radical honesty, but I'm still in the process of learning how to be compassionate with my honesty instead of brutal.
Yes.
Because for many years of wearing this spiritual principle of honesty, I would just run around telling everybody their truth. And I'm like, well, I'm just being myself. I'm just being the most honest version of myself. Like, I have to tell people how it is.
Yep.
But like that's actually cruel. So I'm still in the process of figuring out how to balance that spiritual principle. But I'm an honest person, I'm open-minded, I'm willing. And I also have character defects of like control and judgment and defensiveness and sometimes I can be self-righteous. So I'm not this fully integrated perfect being. I'm just a human like everybody else and there's all these different parts to being a human. Sometimes I can be really on the upper end of the scale of consciousness and unconditional love and joy and acceptance and willingness. And then sometimes I'm on the bottom and I'm in grief and apathy and judgment and betrayal. And I really enjoy going up and down this scale of consciousness and experiencing all that it is to be a human.
I think that is the essence of it, is because life is about the polarities, isn't it? It's learning it. I mean, you did go to extremes, but recognizing that because there's so much stuff out there, this is the way to be, but nothing about how to deal with the opposite side of things and the fact that the only constant is change.
Yes, yes, change is the only constant. And, we're on Earth, and Earth is a dual experience. We have good and bad, and happy and sad, and black and white. And this is the whole point of the Earth experience. If you wanted to just be like some super enlightened spiritual guru, you would have just stayed in heaven. That's all that there is there. But here on Earth, we get to experience everything. So, like, experience everything. And yeah, obviously the lower emotions feel like shit. Don't stay there for too long, but experience it. There's these spiritual traps, right? Like there's all these spiritual teachers who are like, heighten yourself and this and that. And that could work for some people. And I don't think that it's one size fits all. So like that's good for them if it works for them. But I've seen the darkness, I've lived it, and it's not to be killed. It's not to be abandoned. It's just to be integrated. That darkness is there as a protector. My darkness protected me my whole life. It kept me alive long enough to have the experience in the light. So I really appreciate my darkness. I appreciate the victim part of me who, man, she ruled my life for a long time. It's hard for me to even say that I appreciate her, but I've gotten to a point now in this integration process where I can see all the gratitude for all those parts. My manipulator, my victim, my insecure part, my cold detached part, my ruthless abuser part, all of those parts were just doing all that they knew how to do, and that was just survive. And so today I get to, attempt to live my life in different attributes like my intuitive abilities, my compassion, my empathy, my courage. Oh my God, that's my favorite one to live inside of. I love being courageous.
But that comes from the heart. Just going back to what you're saying, one of the hard things is that people abandon those bad bits and they label them bad as not part of themselves. And so I find in my own work in mentoring, it's just like they are the juicy bits. They may not be sort of things that you'd hold up as a trophy, but they are what make you up. And it's a bit like the art of kintsugi, where you gather all the pieces and you highlight them in gold because you are even more scrumptious because of it. And when you take the lessons from it, then it really gives you so much more depth and connection to yourself and courage because it comes from the heart. It's a knowing, isn't it?
Yes, I love that so much. And I've found that through communicating with my different parts, like whether I'm talking to spirit guides and angels and the light, or I'm communicating with the shadow and I'm talking to the divine, to the feminine or the masculine shadow or however it shows up in the moment. My shadow is always way more willing to talk to me. I mean, they're both very willing to talk, but I can communicate so much easier with my shadow because it's much more developed. Like I spent 35 years of my life in the darkness. And so those characters are very developed and we've had communication for a long time. It just was never direct communication. It was the shadow speaking through me. And so when I connect with my light, like, yes, it's all very affirming. It's super uplifting. It's always the same sort of internal message of worthiness and connection and love and service. But my shadow has real pieces of information for me. Like when I ask my victim, like, what do you need right now? Why are you showing up? It always has like a real story for me. And it always has an actionable solution based step for me to integrate it at the point where I'm at now in integration. It wasn't always like that. I used to talk to it and it would be like, shut up, bitch, just deal with me. But now it actually tells me what to do to integrate it.
But that's beautiful that you're taking the time to actually get to know yourself. So, for the listeners and the people watching, what practices do you do for yourself to integrate these?
Yeah, so it's a lot of childlike imagination and intuition and character development. So think of yourself as a creative writer and you're writing a story and you need characters for your story. So when I think about my inner controller,
Yep.
she looks a certain way, right? She looks like Miss Trenchbull from Matilda. She's like this brolic kind of yeah, Olympian. She's like very buff. She has a clipboard. She's very stern and she wants to write everything down. And so I designed her that way. I asked her what she looked like, and that's the image that came through in my mind's eye, and I just trusted it. You don't need to like hear an audible voice or
Yep.
see an apparition in front of you to connect with all of these pieces. So I started to design them. I started to talk to them. I think one mistake that I made was that I was doing a lot of this work by myself.
Yep.
And so at a certain point, the shadow was just like, oh, she's got nobody else with her. She's riding solo. And so the shadow started to take over. When I started to do this work, I was really immersed in eating disorders. So, like, my drug addiction had taken a back seat. It had already been a year and a half. I started doing shadow work. So, no drugs, no alcohol, no caffeine, no nicotine, but I had these eating disorders. Like I was binging and purging all the time. And so I started to develop the eating disorder image. And so I would communicate with her, but she was, I mean, I thought I was going to kill myself because I just could not get this piece of my shadow integrated. And I felt totally hopeless and helpless. And I was talking to my mentor in my recovery program, and she said, do you believe that God wants to help you with this? And I said, no, I don't. I don't believe that. I believe that God wanted to help me with my drug addiction, but
Right.
I don't believe that God cares about this eating disorder. And she was like, well, that's crazy. But she said, you don't have to believe, just believe that I believe. And that sentence changed my whole life. I didn't even have to put faith in anything except that this woman had faith. I could do that. That was easy enough. And I started to experience real major shifts with that eating disorder recovery. And I've had years of abstinence away from those behaviors now, which is a total miracle. But again, it was just about designing them. These parts want to talk to me. And so I just started to design all of them. I would blend them into the light. So I would bring an angel or a spirit guide into the scene with me, and we would all communicate with each other. And it was like we were sitting at this picnic table and we were exchanging food and conversation and information with each other. And my light piece would just kind of blend the darkness into it. And by the end of the conversation, it was just one being at this picnic table. And, this is childlike imagination, intuition. You have to just really trust yourself and just like put those thoughts of, am I crazy, on the back burner and say, you know what, this works for me. And there's types of therapies about this too. Internal family systems, parts work. Richard Schwartz, he developed this whole system of integrating all the parts of yourself, understanding who's a protector, who's a firefighter, who's a manager inside of your psyche, and just really blending them. And this is parts of Jungian philosophy as well. So once I saw that this exists not just inside my mind, that helped me a lot as well.
I really want to pick up on what you were saying about not having to have a faith in anything, because it doesn't matter what it is. I was listening to something of yours earlier and you came up with the word omnist, which is a belief in everything, because everything has got golden nuggets in it. And I really love that. And also, just even having that one person, so not trying to do life alone. And I can say from someone of my own generation, at 64, that it was about doing life on your own, and you had to push and shove and survive and prove that you could do it, which is an absolute load of bollocks, because it's community that actually helps us. And I also make the analogy with every cell in our body is an individual cell, but it's a community, and the whole point is getting the whole community to work together. And then when it does, it has that great connection to everything that is in the higher consciousness and everything. And, we are a conduit for it. So, yeah, just a lovely, juicy piece of info. And I love your imagination. We can take it anywhere and just play with it. I think that's the thing, not taking it so seriously.
Yes. And the thing is, everybody's using their imagination already. They're just using it for all the negative bits, right?
Yes, yes.
People are constantly future tripping or going into the worst case scenario because we're all trained that way. That's what fear programming does, is it programs us to remain small and to keep yourself safe and alive.
Yep.
And it's nobody's fault. This is literally how we're all programmed. But there comes a point in your life, especially if you're on a journey of spiritual awakening, where you have to look in the mirror and say, this isn't really working for me. I don't like the feeling of anxiety. I don't like the feeling of fear. I don't like the feeling of depression. I don't like the idea of frustration or working a job that I can't stand to take care of a family that I really dislike and pay bills that I don't know why they exist. And so at some point, you start asking yourself quantum questions. What is Earth? What am I doing here? What's the meaning of life? What's the meaning of my life? What's my purpose? And once you start really getting into the core of all of those things, it becomes impossible to keep seeing things negatively because I was so excited for what the future was going to hold. And I don't know if that's because I had this really transformative experience or if it was because I just kept picking up little pieces of hope along the way. And it didn't come in one bright white flash. It was this slow and steady return to remembrance, to my highest self, that I don't think any of us came here to play it small. I really don't. But a lot of us are confused and think that we have to.
It is that process, and everything is a quick fix nowadays, or a hack to this, that, and the other. And by hacking it, you don't get all the juicy bits. It is one step at a time. And I just want to mention Jane Goodall, who passed away yesterday. And she was saying every small choice you make makes a difference. And if you want to make a difference in the world and change the world for the future, make conscious choices and know that every little thing that you do is a contributing factor to it. So it's never going to happen overnight. And we continue to evolve until we actually do die. So I just want to ask, was part of your recovery with spiritually inclined people, or did you speak to near-death experiences? How did you get all this information?
That's a good question. So I was in rehab for a year and a half.
Yep.
And there was one woman in there, and she was really into like all sorts of new age spirituality stuff. Like she had oracle cards in her room. She introduced me to spiritual teachers like Gabrielle Bernstein, and I read all of the books that she had, and we shared books, and she had crystals and all of this stuff. And so really what I did was I took it upon myself to start doing independent investigation. And I manifested people in my life. I would cry out to the divine and I would say, please send me a teacher. And then all of a sudden, this man showed up at our rehab to volunteer his time. he was coming from a Buddhist temple and he wanted to teach us how to meditate. And he had never been there before, has never gone back since, because I go and do service at that rehab. It was like literally something that I manifested. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear, that kind of thing. That's a real thing. And so when I was ready to be guided, guides started to come to me. And my mentor in recovery, she's obsessed with near-death experiences. I didn't know that she was obsessed with them, and she didn't know that I had one. But as
Right.
we developed our relationship with each other, all of this was exposed. And it just, again, it seemed like spirit brought me to just the right person, because she had information about the experiences that I didn't know. She had watched so many of these videos and read so many of these experiencers' books that she was actually really able to help me in this way. And I started to find spiritual communities that helped me as well. So I kept trying stuff on. At first, I thought that I was supposed to be an evangelical Christian and get baptized and be reborn and devote my life to Jesus and travel the world sharing about Jesus. And then I went to evangelical churches and I thought, oh, this is not for me.
Right.
Because it felt like the audio and the video wasn't matching. Like
Yeah.
the things that they were saying, but the way that they were behaving, they were two totally different things. And I said, okay, this is not for me. And so I went to a Baptist church and everybody was dancing for Jesus. And I really liked that, but it still didn't feel right. It felt like there was something off about it. And so I just started to do self study and self investigation. And I read every spiritual text that's ever existed. And I found the underlying truth in all these books. And it's just really be kind to each other. Be kind to each other. Nobody knows what's going on here. I found communities. I started my own community because I couldn't find exactly what it was that I wanted. I have lots of near death experience or friends now, lots of spiritual experience or friends, and we grow and we evolve together. I just set out intention. Spirit, please send me my people. Please send me my tribe. And people started to magnetize themselves to me when I was ready.
It's interesting what you're saying, because I believe we're all, as a student and a teacher, we can learn from one another. And it's that reciprocal relationship that's so important. Going back to where you're talking about your imagination, it is all about exploring and trying on things to see what fits for you, because there is no one way. And that, I think, is what has been our demise, because people are sitting in a pulpit and saying, choose this way. But unless you experiment and find what resonates for you, because it's all about energy at the end of the day, is finding your own tribe that you can vibe with. That is absolutely crucial, isn't it?
Oh my goodness, yes. And remain open-minded. It's going to
Yes.
change. The things that I believed in the beginning of my journey are not the things that I believe now. And this is like extreme, clear downloads that I received in the heaven space. Those are not my belief systems anymore,
Oh,
because
wow.
they have evolved, because I have evolved, and the earth that I live on is evolving, and the timeline that I'm in is shifting. But
Yeah.
I used to have very rigid beliefs. I used to believe that my way was the only way. My information was the best information. Now I see things real differently. And it's not just about learning from other spiritual people or people that I think like are on my level.
Yeah.
My day job, I work in the field of substance use disorder. And I go out and do outreach on the streets of New York City with the homeless population, trying to get them connected to care and just like pass out snacks and water. And I learn more from homeless people on the street than I do from pastors inside of churches. And so the thing is, I just remain open minded. Everybody has some kind of truth. A pastor in a church, a homeless person on the street, a billionaire, a poor person. Everybody has a piece of information. We're all puzzle pieces for each other. We're all pieces of this beautiful mosaic. And the sooner that I can let down my judgment and my defenses against other people and the way that I perceive them, I can learn so much more if I just let go of my own judgments.
Well, that's so profound. I mean, it's as we opened, and keeping that open mind and allowing yourself to change. It's not only within ourselves, but it's when we come together, say relationships, they fall apart because we're all changing at the same time, but because that change is so big, and it's like we're trying to make that person into someone that we are now.
I totally agree with you. I don't think that anything is supposed to be forever because we're always growing and evolving. So even relationships, romantic relationships, maybe even children and parent relationships, I don't know. I don't know if everything is always supposed to be bonded for all of life. You grow and change and evolve. And sometimes people don't fit into that new evolvement with you and they fall away. But our society has taught us that you have to stay in uncomfortable situations because blood is thicker than water, or whatever these sayings are, or, till death do us part. But what if it was actually just the death of a version of yourself?
Yes, yes.
Instead of thinking like until my physical body dies, what if it's just, oh, when this version of myself dies, then we part?
Absolutely. And that brings up for me the literal translation of things. And so for me, I spent my teens in a convent because no other school would have me, and they were the most uncharitable. So the word God to me really rankled everything inside me. And because, as you were saying, within the tribes, they didn't live what they were preaching. And now I've completely forgotten why I brought this up.
Taking the words literally, we were talking
Taking
about
the
your,
word,
yes.
thank you very much. Yes, so it's like when you look at the Bible, when we were forced to read it, you think, how can this bizarre story be true? But as time has gone on, and I think I've heard some of the things you're saying, it's having that honest attitude that they are stories, just like the stories you've created for yourself, to help us have a deeper understanding. So it doesn't matter whether you believe in the Bible or the story, take from it what you will and morph it into something that works for you.
And leave the rest behind. You
Yes.
don't have to take every piece of it.
Yes.
And, when it comes to something like the Bible, that book has been translated thousands of times. I'm sure in that process, things have been jumbled up and lost and
Yes.
mistranslated.
Yeah.
Books are missing. It's like this whole thing. And something that I realized when I was coming into this world and opening my mind up to spiritual awakening and awareness is, how did Greek mythology or Egyptian mythology become mythology? Like, who decided that it was a myth
Yes.
instead of a faith or a religion? And is Christianity the same thing? Is it just Christian mythology? And it's just the archetypes and the story? Because when you compare the stories to one another, they are actually all very similar and the same. But we say that one is fantasy and one is reality. And to me, that there's something missing there. There's a link missing there. So either it's all fake, which is probably the more apt of them, or no, it's just definitely all it's all fake. Yeah, or it's all true, or it's some combination of all of those things.
But again, it's about perspective, isn't it? Which is really the crux of it. We all have a different vantage point to life, and I'm not right and you're not wrong. It's because I'm different. So it's having that open mind and heart to listen to it and see what you can take and let go of the rest.
Absolutely.
I know that the Course of Miracles, you've done very well to contain yourself, because I know it's at the heart of a lot of what you do. And one of my questions is always about, is there a book or a person that's influenced you? And the Course of Miracles is a big thing for you. And I've picked it up and it's freaking heavy. So kudos to you. How did you create the staying power to, because I've heard you say you didn't understand even some of the words in it. What was it that made you stick to it?
I knew that it was truth, even though I didn't understand all of it. So, if anybody doesn't know, the author of A Course in Miracles is Jesus. So, major author flex. But it's Jesus channeled through the mind of a militant atheist Jewish psychotherapist from Columbia University. And it was published in the 1970s. And A Course in Miracles is not a book, it's a mind training program.
Yep.
So when you read A Course in Miracles, you can tell right off the bat that this is not from a human mind. And that is what kept me going.
Right.
Because I thought this is otherworldly. Nobody talks like this. Nobody could write a book like this. This doesn't make any sense. These words don't go together properly. So I felt like I was reading some kind of code. And I didn't have the key to all the codes inside the book, but some of them I really deeply understood, and some of them validated my spiritual experience. And so I just kept reading, even though there was whole chapters of the book I didn't understand, but I just kept going. And I also was trapped inside of a rehab for a year and a half, so I had a lot of time on my hands. I don't think that everybody in the collective has that kind of time on their hands, but it's something that kept me going. And I did the workbook lessons. And once you get into the workbook inside of A Course in Miracles, that really helps in wanting to read and understand the text as well, even though it is very dense. And then I found a community, and that community helped me understand some of the stuff that I didn't get.
So it's really curiosity, isn't it? And it's an inner knowing and not denying it. Going back to the feelings and trusting that and sitting with it and following it through, even if it takes you to a place where you decide this isn't for me. There's no harm in trying something. I know that you run your own courses now on the Course in Miracles, don't you?
Yes. Yeah, I'm part of a collective, and we have a Course in Miracles study group. It's a free group. It meets Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And we just read together. We read the book together. We pause, we reflect, we ask questions. Everybody's at different points in their Course in Miracles journey. Some people have never opened up the book before, some people have read it for the last 30 years. And it's so cool to learn in an environment like that where everybody's at different places, because it's very eye-opening to see how different people interpret this very dense, challenging text.
Mm, fantastic. So, apart from A Course in Miracles, is there any other books that have influenced you? You mentioned Gabby Bernstein earlier.
She's the best. I love her. Today is actually her 20-year soberversary. So, way to go, Gabby Bernstein. Her books totally changed my life. I learned how to manifest and use the law of attraction through her books, and I've manifested a beautiful life for myself. I really have. And other books that really changed my life: Robert Schwartz, Your Soul's Gift and Your Soul's Plan, Michael Newton's Journey of Souls. These are both men who are authors. Their books are around the idea of pre-birth planning. So their books are channeled messages as well, and they're channeled from mediums and spirits that are talking about the fact that we do plan our lives before we come here. And that was part of my spiritual experience, and I had no idea that there were books written about it. And so when I found these books and they came into my life and my awareness, I would just cry reading it, cry, cry, cry. Oh my God, this makes so much sense. This is what I saw. Thank you. Thank you, God, for sending me the piece of literature that I needed to affirm my experience. So those books really changed my life a lot as well.
When you were talking about the manifesting, it is all those signs and symbols and things that come into your life. I think one of the big things is an open mind perspective, being curious, and an awareness that really opens us up to all those possibilities. There's one thing that I wanted to ask you was about when you had your near-death experience, you heard your father's voice, didn't you?
My dad's my number one spirit guide. He's always with me. He hangs out right over my left shoulder. And he told me in my experience that I was worthy of all the love in the universe. And he just kept chanting, "You are worthy of all the love in the universe. You are worthy of all the love in the universe." And of course, I didn't believe that, because at the time I was a drug addicted prostitute. I was homeless. I was a ruthless abuser. I was a liar, a thief. I was just a terrible, traumatized human being. That message has repeated itself so many different times in my life, exactly when I needed to hear it. I didn't know if I was talking to my dad or not. I just thought that I had broke my brain. I thought, oh my God, girl, you've done so many drugs that you're trapped in psychosis now. They're going to put you in a psych ward. You're nuts. And I asked my dad if he could show me a sign that it was really him. And it was actually in Gabrielle Bernstein's book that I learned that I could ask for a sign. I could ask my loved ones for a sign. I could ask the universe for a sign. I could ask God for a sign. And the first thing that popped into my head was a fox. And I was like, okay, Dad, if it's you, show me a fox. And the next day I went to one of those discount stores where everything in it is just, it's trashed inside of there. There's like forks in the underwear aisle, there's shoes in the home goods. Like the store is just, it's a disaster inside of it. And I was waiting online to pay, and everybody had discarded all their items on the shelves by the checkout line. And there was this book, it's right behind me. I don't know if you can see it, but it said Amazing Dads. And it's a picture of a daddy fox and a baby fox on the book. And I knew that it was him. And so I'm always asking for signs. In fact, there's not one symbol left in this universe that doesn't have some kind of spiritual meaning to me, like everything
Wow.
does. You can ask for signs. You can ask your loved ones for signs, ask God for a sign. Is this for my highest good? And the sign will come to you if it's meant to.
Wow, that's really profound. It must have been really hard to integrate that because there must have been a stage where you didn't believe him because you were trying to move on and he was from a world where they were abusing drugs. So why should you believe this in him? And then you saw their suicide pact, didn't you? Your parents.
Yes, I did. In my experience, in my life review, I saw not just my life, their life, everyone's life. It was a lot. My whole brain got cracked open. The energy that I connect with, it's not my dad. It's like this higher being who has nothing to do with the character that he played on Earth. On
Right,
Earth, he played a traumatized person who traumatized other people.
right.
Like, if you think my life was bad, you should hear my parents' life stories.
Wow.
That's a fucked up story. Like, they really had it bad. And so they traumatized me unknowingly. They didn't do it on purpose. Like, this is all that they knew. And
Mhm.
so, like you said it before, right? Like, if you don't know, you can't do anything. And they didn't know. They didn't know that they were doing harm. They didn't know that there was another way. My dad was a shitty dad. He was not a good dad. He sucked. He was abusive. He was ruthless. He was just not a good person. But his spirit, A plus, best dad ever. The
Wow.
eternal father. He's great. He's great in spirit form because it's not this character. Like, this is the part that we're playing here. This is our costume that we're wearing, and the costume is full of character defects, character assets. It's got a personality attached to it. In spirit, no personality, totally void of personality. The only personality we have is unconditional love and joy and acceptance and surrender and willingness. And so the part of my dad that I connect with is just this eternal part of him. So I'm so grateful to have that father energy in my life.
So that is a massive insight, isn't it? Because we think our reality is all there is. And in our closed minds, that is it. But to be able to differentiate your father's as a character here on earth and his energy. So for people who haven't had a near-death experience, how do we make that transition to really appreciate that energy and draw and tap into it to lift ourselves more out of this so-called reality that we think is all there is?
I don't think that it's one size fits all, but I'll tell you what I do to help me. So, some of the things that I do is I eat clean. I'm a sugar-free, gluten-free vegan who only drinks water, which is crazy because I used to eat pills out of other people's puke. It's like
Oh,
literally a part of my story. But so I think that by eating clean and keeping my vessel clean, I'm at a higher vibration where I can connect. But this is my belief system. And
yeah,
it's not everybody's belief system because I have friends who are psychic mediums and they eat McDonald's all the time and they can connect to spirit super easily because that's their belief system. I
yeah,
also think that connecting to a higher energy is a muscle. You have to
yes,
practice, and you don't go into the gym and pick up a 500-pound weight. You go into the gym and you pick up these little 2-pound dumbbells in your hand and you just go little by little. So start asking the universe for signs and looking for them. And that builds those muscles. Do something every day to get yourself there. Give yourself 3 months of trying a practice once a day. You don't have to sit on a pillow for 20 minutes and be still and meditate. You don't have to do this for hours of your life. Just do it for 5 seconds. 5 seconds is better than no seconds. 2 minutes is better than 5 seconds, but like build up the muscle to get yourself there and just believe, trust and believe. I know that one of your questions that you're going to ask is like, is there a quote that you really like?
yeah,
And my quote is from Wayne Dyer, and it's, when I believe it, I'll see it.
yeah.
Not the other way around, right? In the collective, we think when I see it, I'll believe it. But no, when I believe it, I'll see it. If you believe that you can connect to the divine, then you will receive proof. And the whole world is this gigantic echo chamber that we live inside of. Whatever you put out, you will receive back. If you put out negativity, depression, sadness, judgment, defensiveness, you will receive it back. And if you put out connection, joy, elation, service, you will also receive that back.
Yeah, it's the magic. I think the stem of what the quote that you were talking about actually comes from Roald Dahl. I think it was in the story Matilda or something, because he loved using stories and the magic of the children's imagination. It's like, you don't have to see it before you believe it, and then you will see it.
I love it. Wayne Dyer is a thief. Okay, thank you for explaining that to me.
I don't take my word as gospel, but I've read another version of the same thing. So it may have started with somebody else altogether, but it just adds a different perspective to it, hey?
It does. It really, really does.
So what do you do when you're in a funk?
Well, I like to exercise. That's like one of my positive coping skills. I like to move my body. It helps me connect with my inner child, who is usually in charge of my funks. So she likes to dance and play. So if I can connect with her, then that helps. I journal. I call a friend. I reach out to somebody in community. I do an act of service, which can just be like begrudgingly holding a door open for someone. Like if I'm not in a good mood, obviously I don't have some grand act of service planned out. But even just calling somebody and asking them how they're doing instead of me venting. I try not to stay in any lower emotion for more than 5 minutes. I'll literally set a timer on my phone and I'll say, you got 5 minutes to act like a victim. Go ahead. And then I'll just let my whole victim story spill out of me. But I also don't fight a bad feeling. If you want to feel depressed, like you're on earth. I think something that happens with a lot of people, especially around grief, is everybody just wants to avoid grief. How can I make grief go faster? How can I make this not be this way? Nope. You have to feel your grief. There's nothing that you can do about it. You came here to be human. Part of being human is experiencing grief. Just sit through it. It's gonna pass. It's a cloud in the sky. It will pass. It does get easier, but don't avoid being human. Being human is really cool. Experiencing all the emotions is really cool.
And it goes back to the disease thing, because so many people, they have battle with these emotions. And as we know from experience, there is no winner when you have a battle in something. It is about sitting with it, and it's easier to resolve. And for me, one big thing I'm always pushing home to people is acknowledging it. The more you think, oh, I don't like that, and you push it down, you push it down, you push it down, and it's going to implode. So by acknowledging it, by sitting in it, setting a timer, and then doing something fun and different. Moving is great. Yes, I'm a dancer myself, and there's nothing like that to get the old juices flowing, is there? It's a natural way of getting the dopamine and getting your hit, isn't it? As opposed to resorting to drugs.
Yes, it is. And I've been hearing all these people say that cold water plunges are like the greatest dopamine hit. I still haven't tried it. I don't think that I ever will. But there's ways to naturally increase your dopamine. I'll stick to dancing, and other people can stick their heads in cold water.
Yes, it's funny because I went to Antarctica nearly 10 years ago, and I'm going again in January. And some of them did a plunge, and it's like, fuck that. I'm too skinny, scrawny, and I know that I'll probably have a heart attack. I'll do the dance on the deck while the other people are doing it.
That's so great.
So my final question to you is, if I was your fairy godmother and could grant you one wish in the world, what would it be and why?
Oh, wow. Well, I'm looking for a literary agent. Help me change the world. No, I
Oh,
think if I
cool.
could get one wish in the world, I don't know. I don't like to think about pushing anything on the world. I think that the world is working exactly how it's supposed to right now. But
Yeah.
I do wish that more of us knew that your thoughts shape your reality, that it really is you. Like you are the creator of your reality. So if you can change your thoughts, you can really change your life. And changing thoughts takes repetition. So, yeah, I guess that would be my wish, to maybe open up the awareness of a few more.
Have you read Wayne Dyer's book, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Mind? Yeah? It goes back to that quote, and I love all the Taoist principles as well, because it's talking about a way. And ultimately, again, it all boils down to finding our own way and being compassionate with ourselves and open and loving and open mind, open heart, which is exactly the way that I end my podcast. Is there any closing nuggets that you want to share, apart from the fact I will obviously let people know your website as well, so they can find out all the details and sign up for any of the courses that you're offering?
No, that's it. I'm so grateful to connect with you. Thank you for your service. I'm wishing you so much love and luck on this podcast journey. Your voice is so needed and appreciated. It's such a divine service to create conscious space for other people. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. That's why I started out, because there was so much shit news going on. And I know there's so many people in the world doing scrumptious things. And it's really sowing all those seeds of hope. It's serving its purpose. And it's beautiful guests like yourself that give up their time to share your story with great authenticity that is going to really inspire others. Bless you. Thank you for your time, Betty.
Thanks so much, Philippa. So grateful for you.
Wasn't that a profound conversation, and really highlighted how we could not possibly conceive what changes are afoot and how our lives can be different. And as Betty said, the important thing is that our thoughts create our reality. So become consciously aware of the thoughts that you actually put out, the way you talk to yourself and the way you interact in the world. Now, you may or may not have picked up on the fact that one of Betty's wishes, which she said rather quickly, was that she's looking for a literary agent. So if we have a literary agent listening, it would be awesome if you could reach out to Betty and see if you could help her. Don't forget to share this episode if you've enjoyed the pearls of wisdom you've heard. Please write a review, as they're always appreciated, as are any ideas for guests or subjects you'd like me to consider for the future. Just email me on info@philippaross.com. So until next time, have fun, dig deep, open your mind to a world of possibilities, live life with a generous heart, and take steps to minimize waste and maximize your own potential.